everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. Thank you to the booksellers at Malaprop. Thanks everyone watching at home. I've been coming to downtown Asheville to visit my family since I was little, and it's so beautiful to be here tonight, hanging out, sharing this book with you guys. I'm going to read a very brief section from the first chapter, and we'll do a little conversation and a little bit of group therapy, and we'll have a good evening. Okay. My sister Poppy arrives on a wet Thursday, dressed ugly and covered in hives. I started flaring a little insecurity, she says, dropping her bags, towing off her salt-streaked boots, unwrapping a chunky gray scarf I gave her 6 years ago after realizing it signaled nothing about me at all. Beneath the scarf, Poppy's neck is dappled with welts, some pinker and fresher than others. She closes her right eye and blinks her left rapidly, like something's stuck in it, while she fills me in on her trip. Leaving Florida, there were, you know how there's always that old couple in line at security who don't take off their belts, don't take out their iPads, then they have like soup with them, things of lotion, they go through probably 8 times. I was behind those people. The whole thing was chaos. I had to steal a water bottle at the little store because no one was there. Now I notice a huge Evian sticking out of her tote. To save $50 on airfare, Poppy flew from the Palm Beach airport, not to JFK or LaGuardia or even Newark, but to MacArthur on Frontier, then rode a shuttle from the airport to Ronkonkoma to catch the Long Island Railroad, then took a 2-hour train that ended up taking 3 hours because someone jumped onto the tracks and died as it was pulling into Jamaica. I saw the fucking body bag, Poppy says. She claws at her throat. Her fingernails, overlong as always, leave red slashes. If she scratches too much, the hives will bleed, become infected, refuse to heal. Her body is a log of all the time. She could be good and patient and just wait for the swelling to go down. Don't itch, I say, swatting at her hand. I've seen body bags. You'll see more if you move here. Do you have your EpiPen with you? Yeah, Poppy says, but it's not that bad. It'll go down in a minute. I just need to let it breathe. She sounds uncertain. I haven't had a real flare in forever, she continues. I don't know if this is really even a flare. It's probably like normal people hives. I'm just not used to wearing a scarf for this long. And air travel is stressful, you know, so I don't think it's hives. Also, I am moving here. That's why I have all this shit with me. We'll see, I say. Should you use it? Use what? She throws herself down on the couch and fans her neck. Your EpiPen? Poppy looks at the floor, then back at me. I don't have one right now. They doubled the price and mommy and daddy's insurance doesn't cover it anymore. And I've been on the phone with this company like 5 or like maybe 4 times this month. And I just don't want to pay them $700 or whatever they want for it. Like I could, but I shouldn't have to. It's burglary. It's criminal. My throat could close up and they want me to pay $700 to have like a chance to stop it. Fuck Blue Cross Blue Shield, she says, pushing her knuckles into her eyes. Fuck healthcare. Fuck America. Okay, I say, but what if your throat like does close up? You know, I've never had my throat close up. Oh my God, that's not the point, Poppy says, pinching at her lashes to tug her lids away from her eyeballs, a thing she knows I hate. Stop that. Oh my God, she says again, you stop. And she stomps into the bathroom and shuts the door. I hear her peeing. After a moment, she calls to me, sheepish, and asks me to bring over her phone, which she tells me is in the pocket of her coat. A monstrous and woolly wine red robe wrap kind of thing that I recognize as a hand-me-down from our mother. I take Poppy her phone. I couldn't poop on the plane, she says as I hand it over. It was so bumpy. Plus, oh my God, have you heard this? That you're not even supposed to wash your hands with the water from the bathroom because it's so filthy. And then I shut the door on her and try on her coat in the living room mirror. It goes better with my eyes than hers. And since I'm 2 inches taller than she is, it hits my legs in the right place. On me, it's not so terrible. Now I'm wondering how I can get her to give it to me. Maybe I'll tell Poppy I think the coat's disgusting, and once she stops wearing it out of shame, I'll take it. But then how would I explain wanting something I'd insulted? To avoid a whole fight, I'd have to wait probably until Poppy moved out of the apartment, maybe even until she left the city for good. But considering she's just landed and has 3 job interviews and 5 apartment viewings lined up for later this week, and considering that all Poppy has ever wanted is to come live in New York, and considering I should be supportive of her sole desire, maybe her departure isn't something I should hope for. Poppy wants to stay, and I'm supposed to want to help her stay. Maybe I'll let her keep the coat. In the bathroom, Poppy shits. I hear it hit the water. I carry her things across the apartment into the office, 2 trips, and each time I edge close to the bathroom, I can make out the voice of Donald Trump leaking from her phone. You motherfucker, Poppy says. She opens the door and calls to me. I hate that he's like the funniest person in the world. Don't you hate how fucking funny he is? She closes the door before I can answer. Then she opens it again. Oh, on top of it all, I literally just got my period. One of the Mormon mommy bloggers I follow on Instagram posts about having a mom crush on her mini boyfriend, referring to her month-old baby. He's like a tiny husband I get to hold on my hip. She asks if any other moms feel this way, urges them to answer in the comments. The filter over the photo makes her newborn's just opened eyes an icy bright blue. We need more blue-eyed babies like yours, someone comments. Amen, the original mommy replies. OMG, someone else writes. I always want to make out with my baby. Is that weird? Sick, another replies. No, this is totally normal. It's a hormonal thing, a different person writes. It's like how touching your nipples makes you feel homesick. I have a separate handle I've started using just to follow these religious girls. A couple of years ago, I used it to hate stalk the accounts of brands I liked but couldn't afford, writers who were younger than me but whose careers were far ahead of mine, my craziest cousins and their craziest acquaintances, the worst people from high school. But then I started getting a lot of Mormon mommy bloggers on my Discover page, and I kept following them, collecting them like beanie babies, Danny_Lamb of God, Servant Wife 1515, and so on, each compressing their lives into posts, uncountable shining garnets of the sickest, most deranged content imaginable. Not all of the mommies I follow now are Mormon. Some are evangelicals, fundamentalists, trad-caths, homesteaders. A few nights ago, when I was really high and looking at some mommies, I found a ballerina turned prepper who very much resembled my own mother, and I started crying in a way that felt otherworldly and out of my control. Looking at these women makes me feel full. The last few years, my mother too has started getting religious, but in a weird way. It's weirder, I think, when Reformed Jews suddenly find religion. She won't call herself a Jew for Jesus, but that's what she's become. My parents used to make fun of such people around the dinner table. Now, my mother attends services at a Messianic congregation in Boynton Beach with a sign out front that reads Congregation L'Chaim, where Jew and Gentile are at last one in Christ. She told me through tears not long ago, when I was growing up, I always thought Jesus died for everyone but me, and it made me feel lower than a frog. But now I know he died for me too. Sometimes my mother emails Poppy and me YouTube recordings of their services, which are led by a guy in a bad rug called Pastor Bruce. She always includes a note like amazing wisdom in here if you two would bother to pay attention. One video I remember was called The Best Is Yet to Come. I've never known a Jew who thinks this way. Jesus, Poppy says when I tell her about my secret Instagram handle. Leave this all behind. Don't think about it. How is this fun for you? I get ready to explain to Poppy that what I'm doing isn't about fun, but I stop myself because I don't know what it is about yet. I could tell her about the ex-ballerina, about what seeing her provoked. I could try to describe the feeling I get watching Pastor Bruce's lectures in the middle of the night, browsing the teaching sections of L'Chaim's website. Teaching number 4, we affirm Jewish culture and Jewish practices that do not contradict the direct word of God. I could tell her that I sometimes get the same feeling when an ad pops up for Endless Shrimp Mondays at Red Lobster while I'm trying to watch the Zapruder film on YouTube. When I see a linen, thanks Sash, when I see a linen clothing company post about how the vibrational energy of linen is 5,000 hertz, which is why wearing linen makes you magnetic to others. Sometimes the things I see on the internet, even and especially the anti-Semitic dog whistles, the worm-brained sociopolitical infographics, the mommy bloggers salivating to make out with their faux-hawked blonde boy children feel like holes in the fabric of time only I am special enough to glimpse. If I'm not stoned already, they make me feel like I'm stoned. I can see the end of art and culture and sometimes even human life if I've been scrolling through the right pages for long enough. Sometimes I feel like my own ancestor. Sometimes I feel like a Tamagotchi. There's no way to fully describe these feelings to Poppy or to anyone. So instead, I show her a recent post by a woman who celebrated her husband's vasectomy reversal by posting a picture of him asleep in a hospital bed, clothed in a paper gown, captioned, "Today is the day. Can't wait till my amazing man wakes up and we can start trying to make babies. If you have a spare moment, y'all, please pray for us." Followed by 2 closed-eyed, tongue-out emojis, and then one of the white man and the white woman kissing with a heart between their faces. Okay, Poppy says, wait, and she grabs my phone out of my hands. I watch her hungry fingers pinch to zoom, and I smile. Thanks.
So Al, this is the last scheduled stop on this whirlwind month-long tour. It's been a month. What?
That's funny.
It
That's
is
a funny way
funny.
to say that.
Well, as the person who gets to sort of like tag along as your little like secretary, it's been
Stop.
a
You're my
hoot.
partner. You're my
I
conversation
am,
partner.
but I'm also your secretary.
Two things can be true.
It can.
We're learning this in our lives, that multiple things can be true at once.
So, what a month it's been.
It's been a month.
What would you say are some of the highlights and some of the lowlights of all that has happened to you in this time?
Well, I don't know. The highlights are getting to do things like this and have really funny little chats with people I love in the room. I don't know. It's cool to see your book in the bookstore. It's cool to be done with it and to not really have any more work to do on this book that I kind of thought would never be finished. Lowlights.
Yeah, what's
I
the
don't know.
worst? What's the absolute worst thing related to your book from the last 30 days?
I didn't like the hotel we stayed at in Providence.
That was,
But other than that,
yeah,
no
yeah.
complaints.
It looked like a place that was actively haunted.
It was difficult.
Yeah.
I had a tough time there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we'll move on. Good. That was a great start. I'm glad that this is how we've begun. So I think that like you write about the internet, and not necessarily like the internet itself, but the way that we use it, like how it feels to scroll better than almost anyone I can think of. And I know that before Worry, you had this like crazy project in mind called Internet Book that was going to be like a document of how you used the internet. And so I'm wondering how much of like that project, because there is so much of the internet in here and so much of how it's scrolled, like how much of that project was something that was repurposed for this, or was it simply something that like you can't let go of, so there was no way it wasn't going to be a part of this?
I think I was never going to let go of trying to write about the internet in a fun way and in a really immersive moment to moment way. I think what I realized when I started taking notes for this project that I had envisioned was that it wasn't interesting just to see like what one person is looking at on their phone all day, every day. And that's when I sort of had the idea to attach this like domestic novel that I had in my head about sharing a space and what you give up and what you gain when you cohabitate with someone. So I thought, what if I attached the sort of, you know, relentless internet scroll to this story about two people, and I could use it to sort of mirror where they were in their emotional lives and in their relationships with each other, and talk about isolation and like a form of addiction, which I do think internet addiction is.
Yeah. As anyone who has ever had a hard time putting down their phone and then felt sick about it could attest. So going off of that, can you tell us how we should be writing about the internet?
With truth and with deep specificity, I think when you talk about the internet in these vague terms, like she opened up her device and she went to the website where
She opened the portal.
She opened the portal, and that's not shade at that book. I love that book, but I think
we love you, Patricia Lockwood.
We love
We're
Patricia
very sorry.
Lockwood. We do love that book, but I think when you detach the internet from what it's specifically doing to you on a day-to-day basis, I don't know, you aren't going to date your work. You're not going to be writing like a Facebook novel that, you know, no one really uses Facebook in the way they did in 2007 anymore, but you gain something really like granular and cool.
Yeah, like the distance of irony has a purpose, but that it removes the ability for closeness and for intimacy, for like actually seeing something. And so since we're talking so much about our phones, which I think is like a key feature of this book, aside from the big one that I'm just not going to talk about, which is we'll get to it in a second. But when I find myself like staring at my phone, I tend to be full up with absolute dread. What is it like to have written a book that in its own way is itself so full of a certain sort of dread?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty heavy book. but that doesn't mean you shouldn't read it. But
It's funny.
It's fun. I think what's interesting about, and maybe I should have talked about this earlier, like when you were saying highlights, lowlights, but like a month in, the way this book is being received is sort of as like a comic novel, like a funny book. And that makes me really happy to hear, very gratified. But it's also not the book I thought I was writing. I thought I was writing something that was like a huge bummer and so like existential and painful, and about difficulty in relationships and feeling really lonely and numbing out from your life. And I guess the reason those things become funny when you sort of like put them down and look at them is partly like a fear response. Like the only way to make the dread of the way we live right now in this moment feel palatable is to laugh at it. And I think part of it is just funny. It is just funny to like look at someone posting about their husband's vasectomy reversal for 300,000 people to see. Like the fact that that's a part of, I don't know, it's a part of my consciousness. And if you read this book, it'll be a part of yours.
So the last question is going to be a very intense lightning round, because the question that I refuse to ask, but which I know you get every single second of your life that since this has come out, is, wow, how much of this book is based on your life? So instead, we're going to play a game called Real or Not Real. Your sibling came to live with you.
Real.
You, high on medical grade painkillers, spent thousands of dollars on a bed after Googling best bed for little sister.
Not real.
Seeing someone watching Gladiator on a Samsung mobile phone on the subway, full volume, no headphones.
You know that's real because we were there for it.
Some of these are plants. Emailing a job you just quit to beg them to let you come back to work.
Not real.
Bonus
but
round.
not considered.
Oh. Bonus question. Immediately then quitting the job again.
No.
Okay. Real. Fighting about BDS and SodaStream in the Atlantic Avenue Target.
Yes, real.
Picking a fight with a mommy.
Yes, real. Getting a fight with a mommy on the internet.
Which one?
The one who was like, she's in here. She was like an anti-vaxxer mommy, and she was like, I'm going to need to take my son into hiding like Anne Frank to keep him safe from the vaccines. And that was a step more than I could take.
Okay, good. Well, then, which pivots really nicely to getting so mad you threw your phone in the toilet.
Say that one more time.
Getting so mad you threw your phone in the toilet.
No.
Overhearing the day I ask you for money is the day I'm sucking your dick.
Yes, in Fort Lauderdale.
But not on an airplane.
Not on an airplane.
No.
Half true.
The fish tank with the sign that says, I am free, but I am very old.
Embellished, but real. I did see a fish up for grabs on the street.
We're going to have a series of related questions. Guy throwing a rock at a squirrel and then trying to guilt you for using ableist language by calling him a psycho.
Half of that story is half true, and that it happened to a friend, a version of it. And then the other half isn't true.
Boyfriend round. Boyfriend who speaks another language to his mother in front of you, so that you can't understand. Real. Jesus Christ. Boyfriend who broke up with you in a laundromat.
Not real.
Thank God. Boyfriend who was still living with his ex.
Hard to call him boyfriend. Luckily, I have a great boyfriend who does book events with me. Is that the end?
That's the end of the end of the lightning round of real or not real.
Thanks for that lightning round.
You're so welcome.
It was fun.
Now we've all learned what's real and what's not real in this world. Do we want to do the bowl, or do we want to do the bowl?
We want to do the bowl.
We're going to do the bowl, and then we're going to open it up.
Get a time check. Oh, we got
plenty of times.
All right.
So a thing that Al did at her launch is because she had this novel called Worry. She printed up, oh, it's not in there, they're over there. She printed up all these little golf pencils that say, I am worried, and everyone was going to write what they're worried about onto a card. We're going to place in the bowl and then pull the worries, read them aloud, and tell you whether or not you should be worried about this.
Yeah. So we're just going to riff on your deepest, darkest pains for a few minutes.
Yeah, we all carry too many worries with us, and someone should be there to tell you.
One jumped out at me, so that's God telling me to.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I worry when my husband drives 100 miles per hour.
It's a valid
This is a
word.
valid worry.
Unsafe at any speed. let alone
Unsafe at
100
any
miles an hour.
speed. I would slow down just a little bit. There are speed limits for a reason, but at the same time, I don't know, driving here is always interesting. I mean, we're in Brooklyn, we don't really drive, but when I drive here, people are very aggressive, and you would think, you're in the South, everyone's nice and they want to be a good neighbor, but that's not the case on these highways.
Never be the fastest car on the road.
She did not want to be late to her nieces.
At the same time, there is justification. Listen,
Will I ever have enough money to retire? No. It's a valid worry. Social
Valid
Security
worry,
is going to
yeah.
be dead. None of us are really paid a living wage anymore.
cost of living is just going up,
Yeah.
up.
So I live with this fear every day of my life, and I simply choose to believe that I will never retire and I will never die.
That's a great set of beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I will retire by dying.
Mm.
One of,
Oh.
yeah, whichever comes first.
What if my dog bites someone? Yeah, that's a worry. It's a legitimate worry.
We know this worry.
We're familiar with this worry, and it's always sad when someone else's dog bites someone, because then you're like, oh, they should really do something about that dog. But when it's your dog, they're so special and little and misunderstood. But yeah, I would worry about that. I would also recommend training the dog with chicken, as some of us have recommended to others in this room many, many times. And for some reason, we won't just train the dog with chicken.
My worry is I'm going to fumble the bag in the 11th hour, so to speak.
Oh.
You know, I'm gonna say that by worrying about it, you are closer to guaranteeing that it will happen. So that by holding that worry in your heart, you're creating space for it.
But I like, that this worry disguises a lot. Fumble the bag, kind of vague. Job, relationship, career, like
11th hour, also
11th
vague.
of what? Of, I don't know. This worry is, I can tell that it's deep.
Maybe it's about retiring,
Maybe.
right?
What is it about retiring?
I don't know.
Okay, let's go up to the bottom.
Anyway, yeah, let go of that worry.
Let's go that worry. Or
Not
be
a
more
valid-
specific.
yeah, both.
My worries currently that I have to have a phone call with someone tomorrow at 9 a.m. who initiated it by sending me an email with the subject line, quick chat. I'm worried about this. Quick. I'd worry about it, but I'd also remember that life is a highway. And you gotta drive down it at 100 miles per hour.
Those emails are never fun. They're the
Never
scariest.
fun.
They're like the second scariest
Sasha and I
emails
have
you can ever
gotten some
get.
quick chat emails in our time.
We're gonna answer that question with a question. I worry about everything all the time.
Me AF.
Yeah, valid, invalid, valid
Yeah.
and invalid. By worrying about everything all the time, you're guaranteeing that you have
Mhm.
everything to worry about and nothing to worry about.
I do think that there's a beautiful state of mind that comes from, as someone who does worry about everything all the time, every second. There's beauty that comes from that, because then it's all just noise and you can kind of recognize that all these little worries are really just nothing, because we're specks of dust in this scope of the universe.
Yeah, I mean, two benefits are that you're super alert at all times and you're always like a little hungry.
Fight or flight, yeah,
Yeah,
because your body's burning so many calories,
Exactly.
worrying so much. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Worried that I might embarrass the author. This could be on one of these. Yeah, I don't know. a hard gal to embarrass.
Oh, that's so great!
I knew it was coming. For all time. That's the way we want it.
I worry I won't be able to do everything I want to in one lifetime. The simple answer to that, I believe, is develop a steady methamphetamine habit so you don't ever sleep, so you can accomplish everything you want to do in your lifetime. I think it's the only way such a goal-oriented person can survive. I think being a goal-oriented person is a nightmare that I would never want to condemn myself to. I would. We are given the life that we have to live and should embrace it as best we can by trying to achieve everything in the whole world. I think that you could only really set yourself up for failure.
That's deep.
But at the same
I really like
time,
this story.
I think that shoot for the moon.
Shoot for the moon.
I'm not going to yuck your yum.
I think you will be able to accomplish everything you want to in one lifetime, whoever this warrior is.
Don't sleep.
Don't sleep. Bus.
Don't sleep.
Club. Another club. Bus. Let's do one more.
One more.
One more. Tuition. Heard that. That's a real worry.
Real one.
Worry about
Worry
it.
about it.
Yeah. On that note,
This has been real worry or not real worry
real worry or not real worry.
with Sasha and Al.
I don't think we've done a good job of really alleviating a lot of worries.
Yeah, you got this. These are the most. This is the like highest quantity of valid worries we've gotten. So
Yeah.
like, good job, Ashton.
Good job.
Your worries are real.
I do feel like at every other event, we've been like, don't stress about that, loosen up a little. And we've got some real ones in here.
Yeah.
So,
Way to be the most grounded and down to earth town we've been to.
that's Asheville. All right. Should we take a few questions if anyone has any?
The floor's open.
And we can start, I'm sorry, I forgot to lay out these ground rules, so we'll alternate, so we will start with the folks here, so you will be first.
Okay.
And then, once you go, I'll move to a question from afterwards and come back to you. Okay.
For those at home who may or may not have heard that, what's gonna happen is we're gonna pick them, and then we're gonna read the question, and then we're gonna open it up to the YouTube and the internet.
Halle, I just want to know, how are you happy that your book is being received as funny, or do you kind of say, did you intend for it to be funny, or talk about that just a little bit? It's funny. Funny. Are you glad?
Are you glad that you wrote a funny book?
I'm glad that I wrote a funny book, and I'm glad that it's being received as funny. I think I'm only funny in writing. I have trouble being funny in life. So this was sort of my one arena where I really wanted to try to see if I could get that balance of like good writing, funny scenarios, spirals of doom. Yeah, I'm happy that it's being received as funny. It makes me feel good.
Okay, we have a question from home, and I'm gonna project, from experience, you won't have to repeat me, just with other folks, you have to be more soft-spoken. So, the folks at home can usually read the questions, but they may not have. So, first one has a little bit of a preamble and then a question. Siblinghood is so mysterious, and cohabitation with a sibling is especially strange. Do you have sibling novel inspirations that you brought to the writing of this book? And this is Nina, but
Hi, Nina. Thanks. Yeah, I did live with my younger sibling for a period of time in 2016 in a very small 200 square foot studio apartment. And that was kind of an indelible, fun experience that was also miserable and very difficult every day. So I wanted to recreate that here. But yeah, cohabitating with a sibling I'm a very bad roommate and always have been. And I think the freeing thing about cohabitating with a sibling is there's no they're sort of like, can you take out the trash next time? It's like, take out the fucking trash. And that's beautiful. It's beautiful to have that freedom. And I think that's like, I don't know, in general, sibling relationships are just full of, you don't have to have certain boundaries at certain times. And then you do have to have certain boundaries at certain times.
And everyone should buy and read The Path of Totality.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Nina.
Yes. And we'll put that in the chat. And then from in the store.
Worry is set in the sort of recent past, and I wonder if in writing or otherwise we'll ever get an update on what Poppy and Jules are doing today, or even in 2020 or whatever. Will we ever see these characters again?
Will there
Listen.
be a sequel?
Your mouth to God's ears. Let's hope so. I mean, it would be really fun to see what they're up to. I don't think they handled 2020 very well, probably.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I think they did a real bad job. I don't know that I would. It's a temptation to write a little, so a COVID novel. We heard about someone this week who pronounces COVID. So I don't think I'd write a COVID novel, but maybe I'd write another novel with them.
So another question from home, and it's back to real or not real from Georgia. I figured that, So, real or not real? You had a dog named after a politician, and was it actually Amy Klobuchar?
Not real. Never had a dog of my own. I don't know that I'd name a dog after a politician, but it was the first time for everything.
And then back to you.
So was that excerpt like the opening scene of the novel?
Yeah,
And what was your process? Like, did you write that first, or?
I did write that first, which like hardly ever happens in writing. You always sort of like start somewhere and then realize, oh, I should have started way earlier or way later. But no, this was the first thing I wrote. And it's still the first thing. Crazy.
So on that note, can you, and actually I'd like for both of you to answer this question, can you talk a little bit about your writing process? We always like to throw in at least one process question.
Thank
Do you
you.
have writers about
It's fun to talk about process.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm super work avoidant. So anytime I have a process for something, it's like I have to sit down at this time in this room and work for this long. I won't do it. So I think the things that I try to make the process a little nicer by like lighting a candle, putting on nice music, and I don't know. I think my process is pretty standard. I write, I edit as I go. Sasha and I like share a lot of work together. We like bounce a lot of ideas around. We'll show each other something we're struggling with and sort of give each other challenges for how to fix it or change it or make it bigger, make it bolder. What's your process like, Sash?
So I went to art school. Shout out John Loudon, my fellow Tyler School of Art alum here in Nashville. And so process is a huge thing for me. I also came to writing novels as a poet. And a line that I hammer way too often is from Gary L. Lutz, who once said that a plot is a parcel of land that a body is put down or into. So
Shout out Gary L. Lutz.
And so for me, I only ever can write once sort of the voice becomes clear and I can understand then. Language is always sort of first and foremost for me. And then after that, once you get the voice, you can understand who is speaking and where they're situated. And once you know who's speaking and the world in which they are, then from that always comes story, because it always ends up being about who is telling you the story and where they are. And this then dictates kind of everything. For me, I always need to write almost completely blind. A lot of this is because when I was in middle school and they were trying to teach us how to write creatively, they would be like, write out what happens in the story, and I'd write out what happened in the story, and then they'd be like, now write the story. I'd be like, what are you, like, I just wrote the story.
Yeah, outlining. this
You want me
difficult.
to then like just do it again? So I don't
I
like
wanted
doing
you to
that.
do it again.
Yeah, for me, if I know what's going to happen, there is no mystery, and I'm not surprised. And if I'm not surprised, the reader can't be surprised. And if the reader can't be surprised, I don't know why they're bothered.
And I think we talk a lot about like having a general roadmap. Or like knowing what emotional beats you want to hit, or like what challenges you want to give yourself as a writer. And beyond that, just kind of like throwing yourself to the wolves.
Yeah, I'm 100% a vibes-based writer, and then I go in and I carve out a structure from the vibes.
Vibes first.
Vibes first, vibes for life.
Amen.
Do you have like sticky notes and cut out pictures and images around you to sort
Sasha
of?
has a lot of, Sasha used to do like a big full wall of sticky notes. I've never been
Yeah.
a sticky notes person. I tried when I saw your sticky notes wall for the first time. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a sticky notes wall.
Yeah, I wrote 140,000 word Western, and something that big like the structure of it requires more mapping. So I ended up needing to sort of map out the acts and the way things would sort of move throughout it. But I would never, okay, I don't know about that. I don't
Never say
know
never.
that I have something like that in me again, and I think that's best for everyone.
We do have another at-home question. We'll be right back. So from Taylor, there are so many good jokes in this book that something that made me laugh over and over was how Poppy and Jules called their parents mommy and daddy. Was this a bit? It seemed like one, but was never commented on by the sisters.
Real or not real?
Real or not real. As someone who has been known to still call their parents mommy and daddy, I think it's at once, I love this question because I haven't really thought about this in terms of like the real or not real situation of like when you assign a character something from your own life, often it shows up differently for you than it does for them. So I don't know that I'm doing it as a bit. I'm doing it from like this reptilian lizard brain place of I don't know, sometimes you still feel like a child, and that's part of life. But I think for Jules and Poppy, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I do think it probably is more of a bit. I think they have some of that like reptilian, instinctual sense of their role in their family, but I think they also like are trying to mock it a little bit and escape it a little bit. Great question. I love that one.
We've got one here.
So, not to like give a spoiler alert to those who haven't read it yet, so Amy Klobuchar has a disability.
Mhm.
Why did you make a dog with a disability? Like, where did that come from?
Why did you make Amy Klobuchar a disabled dog?
Great question. There are a lot of three-legged dogs in Brooklyn, and they're adorable and beautiful and resilient. And I just had in my head the idea that Poppy and Jules would see her disability differently, that Jules would sort of have this kind of like caustic, nasty reaction to it, and that Poppy would be coming to it from a place of like really wanting to, I don't know, take care of something and better its life, and love it no matter what. And I thought it would just be an interesting way to show their internalized reactions to like when something is wounded or when something's struggling, or you can either react with like disgust or you can react with love. And so I think there's a lot of that going on in their relationship, and Amy kind of externalizes that. Great question. Thank you.
Another one from the folks at home who are doing a great job tonight.
These are
Sometimes they're
amazing.
really
I
quiet.
know. These are great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So this is from Lucy. Lucy actually has a couple of
Hi, Mom.
questions. Okay,
It could be any
Lucy-
Lucy.
Lucy, I usually avoid last name, so I will. But Lucy has two questions. 'Cause I feel like anyway,
Lucy and I also have 2 questions.
I choose
Oh
not
my
to comment.
God. 2 Lucy's, 2 questions.
I choose not to comment.
2 questions are a Lucy thing, we've determined.
Classic Lucy behavior.
But we're doing good on time, so.
Great.
So first Lucy question, how many times have you 2 done this? I had a public conversation about worry. I failed to mention that both of the first question is actually a multi-parter anyway, so just
Great.
hold on till the end.
Great.
So I had a public conversation about worry. Have you also done that together about Sasha's work? And how does that feel as 2 writers working together and yet separately? Which is a great question.
It's a great question. This is the second event we've done for worry.
It's the second event we've done for worry, but we have also had a conversation for publication.
Yes, we did a Lit Hub online
Yeah.
conversation, which you can read on Lit Hub. It was fun.
Which was originally more of like an actual conversation
Yeah.
between
It was
us about
fun.
our
We like
work.
spent the winter kind of emailing about process and our careers and stuff like that. It was really fun to do that. I love when we can like share a little bit of our conversations about art and how weird it is to like do this, to like choose to do this as a profession instead of, as I was saying to Claire earlier, being a dentist. It's fun. It's fun for me. I don't know.
It's a hoot for me. I can't wait to do this again for my next book.
Amen.
Yeah.
So let's go to the in-person audience, and then we'll get back to Lucy's second question.
Okay.
Lucy.
Mine's a multi-parter.
Okay.
It's just about being a writer. I'm curious, when a book you're this close to, when you're not writing, how much of your day is spent thinking and going through the same thing that you're working on? And how do you find balance and like try to separate yourself from your work?
I think it depends how much I'm thinking about a project. Sometimes it's like with anything else that like occupies a lot of your life, sometimes you're thinking about it a lot and you have a lot to do, and it's fun or it's stressful or it's energizing, and sometimes it's just not really on your mind as much. It's either not demanding so much of you, or you're just not working that much. So it goes in and out, and it's fun. Obviously, like when you're really in a project and you're thinking about it all the time and everything around you sort of like feeds that work, that's a really fun feeling to have. I think that's what every writer is always chasing. And then what was the second part?
Yeah, just how you balance that. But it sounds like it's more
Yeah,
of an
it's
excitement and you embrace it versus trying to find balance between them.
exactly. Yeah, the balance kind of just happens. I don't know. Oh, great. Yeah.
For me, at the beginning of a project, I'm not sort of able to do that, but the deeper into a book I get, the more the back of my head is always like just churning whether or not I have something to put in it to churn. So when I'm in a project, at the back of my head at every second of the day, I'm thinking about the book and holding the whole of what I've written and need to write in the back of my mind. And anything that happens can set off something. And so for this reason, I always have like a project specific notebook, or I like am dictating a voice note that I then have to like, thank God Apple now like almost does a great job of transcribing it. Like there's a few things they can't get, but that's
not
as much
perfect,
my
but it's
fault as
what we got.
Apple's fault. Yeah, I'm glad it's spying on me at all times.
I love it.
Yeah, so I don't separate things, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Back to the other Lucy. As an older reader, how important is the scrolling and text messages to an understanding of your story?
Oh, good question. I don't know. I think like a lot of the way that the internet shows up in the book and the way texting and social media, it's more about like, I don't know, I tried really hard to like harness the power of description to describe like the minutia of looking at something on the internet. So I hope that it doesn't involve too much like, oh, can I picture this on my screen? It's more about like what the post is like and what the content is, or like the tenor of something that's being relayed in an email or a text message. It's more about like an emotional impression, I think. So
For me, the way you describe the internet functions the same way people describe, like many books will describe furniture or meals or the way a room is decorated. Like it's the way a life is decorated.
And I'm just gonna break protocol for a moment because that segues into the next question online, and then we'll get right back to it. Thank you. So this one's from Ashley, and it says, can you talk about the very specific combination, quote unquote, pieces of the internet that Jules gravitates toward? What did you want that curation to say about her?
Interesting. Well, these were so many great questions. These are the best questions I've gotten online. Like, what is what?
That was my question, and I know.
Snake?
See,
Trevor,
actually,
you
I
got
think
you got
it's-
got.
Yeah, I did.
You got.
You can come up with another.
I'll think.
We're
Can
feeding
he?
two birds with one stone, as I've been advised to say.
That's
To
so
use
much better
animal
than-
sensitive language, yeah. I forget. The question was about like, what does the curation of Jules's Instagram say about her? I think it says she's mentally ill. I think it's like, why is she wasting her time looking at any of this stuff? Other than because it like, I think there's probably something medical that happens with anxiety and with compulsions where, you know, being in the loop at a certain point feels safer and easier and better than the work it would take to exit the loop and try to have positive thoughts or try to tell yourself that like the world is safe, life is safe. So I think by sticking to these really dark corners of the internet, Jules is something complex and psychological is happening with her. But on another level, I think she's just bored and I think she's just numbing out. I think she just wants time to pass.
I would add for all of you real and not real people at home and in the internet and in the room, I think that the biggest difference between you and Jules is that you did write the hit essay about your experiences staring at the dark heart of the internet,
I did something with it.
and
Whereas
Jules didn't do a
yeah.
damn thing.
She's lately, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Tune in for the sequel
Well,
coming spring 2025 from Disney. I made that. That's not true. I'm sorry. I was riffing, but
it's nice to do. Okay, so Trevor, was your question slightly?
Yeah, it was different enough.
Okay.
I want to stick up for it.
Great.
So I guess I was more interested in what that curation of experiences on the internet has to say about broadly the sort of media culture and American culture generally that I think Jules occasionally reflects on. You'd mentioned the sort of imperative to write about the internet with specificity, and I think, and that made me think of. I think a lot of writers are terrified of writing about the internet and find some way to get around it in some way. Maybe they historicize it or they call it by a different name. I think that the reason that they do that is that it is it's very unclear what the volume of content on the internet means, and that's what I was reading where I was always asking is not so much what it said about Jules, because I think I probably sort of agreed with your diagnosis of her. But I was curious, what does it mean? Does it mean, and the answer can be nothing, but I'm curious about, you know, whether you were, when you were searching for experiences for her to have on the internet, whether you were thinking about the underlying need of, like, say, mommy bloggers or something like that.
I think there's like a thematic tie-in with this like idea in the book that there's a lot going on about wanting to be mothered and like wanting to return to a place of like regress and be in childhood and live in this place of being told what to do and being told what to think. So it wasn't sort of a conscious like, oh, this is a one-to-one, I'm going to do this. But I think there's definitely an element of once I realized like, oh, the mommy bloggers kind of fit with Jules's particular pathology. Like that seemed like a great, because there is so much, the internet's so huge and so miserable, and every corner of it is so miserable in such a different way, that it felt like thinking about wanting to do a project like I was talking about at the beginning with Sasha with internet book, that it just seemed like impossible that I could say anything that had meaning about the internet as this monolith, but by focusing on this one little corner of it, I again don't know that it like means anything. I don't know if it adds up to like, I don't know. I think it's all dreck and it's all misery, and content is the death of everything. But she's in it.
Well, I also think it brings up this idea that like by attempting at times to have someone come away with a point of view, we then impose like meaning on a thing, right? And so by attempting, I think, to sort of more show what it does, what it can do to a person, rather than like, I don't know, I may be losing myself in my own little
I'm
interjection.
following you. I'm following.
Yeah, that like bearing witness is very different than bearing judgment, I
Yeah.
think.
And I think that's the thing about Jules, is she thinks she's bearing witness when really all she's doing is, judging.
Yeah.
So we are right at the top of the hour right now. So I would love for the both of you to share any final thoughts you have before we move on to school time.
I just think thanks everyone for being here. This is a special event. I feel like it was a real conversation. It was a real, everyone was involved. I want that so much.
We are all of us comprised of hope and worry, and I am glad that you have all shared both of those things with us tonight.